Hello class, this is CSE-4410, sections 1 and 2, week 5, spring 2025. Okay, so this is the bonus video where we work with Blender to create a, hold on. Okay, so we're gonna work with Blender to create a simple turret. So we're gonna create a turret in Blender. Unwrap the turret so we can color it, and then import the turret and the accompanying texture, because we're going to make a texture for it. We're going to import both into Unity. Okay, so let's begin. Now, right now, I have Blender 4.3 installed, so let's work with that. If you are watching this in the future, it might be a different version by now, but Blender 4.3, open that up. When we open up Blender for the first time, it's going to create this scene with a camera, a cube, and a light. We don't need any of these, so I'm just gonna press A to select everything, delete. I'm gonna instead press Shift A to add a mesh. Let's go with a cylinder, and on the bottom left-hand corner, there is a pop-up we can open that changes the parameters of our placed down cylinder. Let's go with a 6-sided cylinder, so it's basically a hexagonal prism. Everything else we can leave as is, so just click somewhere random in the scene, and there we go. We have a 6-sided prism. We can use as our base for our turret. Press Tab. So previously we were previously in the mode that edits individual separate meshes. So that's for placing things around. Here, this mode has us editing the mesh itself. So now we can add stuff to our mesh. What I like to do is press Z and select wireframe. That way we can get a better view of our entire we can see more of our mesh, basically. So everything that would be behind another mesh, anything that would be behind another face, we can see it all. If you press 1 on the numpad, that's the numpad. We can constrain our view to a orthogonal view, and it basically allows us to see our mesh head on from different axes in Blender. So we can view it head on from the y-axis, head on from the x-axis, head on from the z-axis, and so on and so forth. Okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select the lasso tool, and I'm gonna select these vertices down here. And that's because you see these crosshairs? That's the 3D cursor, and it is at the origin of our 3D model. I want that origin to be the bottom of our turret. So any and all rotations will be relative to that fixed point. If you are to rotate this in Unity, we'll be rotating it about that fixed point. So I want to move this bottom face up, and I'm gonna press down Control to snap the grid. So that way it snaps together on these grid lines. There we go. If you press 1, 2, and 3 on the keyboard, not the numpad, then the keyboard 1, 2, and 3, we can choose between selecting individual vertices. That's number 1. Number 2 is selecting individual edges. Number 3 is selecting individual faces. So select the top face, move it down, move the cursor somewhere outside this hexagon, press I to inset a face. So now we have this hexagon that is shrinking up and down based on how I move the cursor. Let's click to fix that hexagon at that position, and now we have a hexagon in a hexagon. Press E to extrude that face, so now we have a column coming out, and this lip here is going to be the base of our turret. So now we've extruded this face upwards. We can change it if we need to, so there we go. So now we have a face. Looks like a pedestal now, doesn't it? Okay, I'm going to inset it again, like this. And it's going to be a bit narrower. Click, and then press E to extrude once more. And now we have that. This is going to be the base of our turret. And now we're going to press 1 on the numpad. Press Shift A to add and select cylinder. We want another cylinder. So let's choose 8 faces, and we want to rotate this about the y-axis 90 degrees. Press enter, and I'm gonna click outside, and actually no, that was premature. With this new cylinder selected, we're going to move it upwards, and then let me just move it up here. Middle mouse button while holding it down shift. Yeah, drag with the middle mouse button, hold down shift. That will pan the camera without rotating the camera. So this cylinder is a bit too large, so I'm gonna press S to scale it down. And I'm going to use the move tool to move it back down. Now we're almost done. This face is a little bit, let's extend one face outwards. So let's extend this face outwards this way, and this face, I'm going to inset, that's I, extrude, E, inset, I, extrude, but backwards. So now we have a turret. So let's go like that. All right, now we have a basic turret that we can use in our game. Nice. Let's texture it, okay? Right, so there's several ways we can go about texturing it, but I'm gonna go with the art style that has a solid color for every face. Also, we want models in our video game to have a reasonably low polygon count as possible. That way it's less work for our computers to render the scene. So I'm going for a low poly art style, but more specifically, the kind of low poly art style that has flat colors for every face. So let's go back, and I have, remember those car models I shared in the past? Yeah. We could go about and reuse one of those textures. So the car textures that I had previously, those textures are of course available on canvas, so you can play around with them. But let's open one of them. I'm opening it in paint.net. I already have a copy here, so ignore that. I'm going to make a copy of this texture. So I had it set up so the texture is broken up into 10 squares. So the idea behind this is there would always be a black, dark gray, light gray, and white square, a primary and a secondary color, and 4 tertiary colors for accessories. That is the mindset behind making my textures look like this. Now, this is not the only way of coloring our model here, which, oh, by the way, let's save it. So I'm gonna call it dart.blend. This is just how I make my 3D models. So let's unwrap this bad boy. So UV editing, and I'm gonna select the whole mesh, and it's like, this mesh is a mess right now. I typically go for, when I unwrap it, I typically go for Smart UV Project, and maybe I have to select this whole thing here. Okay, so press A to select everything on this side, and Smart UV Project and unwrap. So this unwraps my entire this unwraps the entire model. There are several ways to unwrap it. When we typically think about unwrapping a texture, think about skinning the 3D model and then laying down its skin so it's perfectly flat. Then you color in the skin along the outlines, being mindful to take note of where the outlines are, and then undoing the process. So you wrap the skin back onto the 3D model, and that is how you get your fully textured model. So you unwrap it, texture it, wrap it back up, and then you would have your fully textured 3D model. That is the typical process of making a texture for a 3D model. I am going for a particular art style where every face is a solid color. So for our purposes, that doesn't exactly apply here. So I have a copy of the green car texture here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to save this as a turret texture, and I'll save it to the desktop. Again, this is just how I would go about making a 3D model. There are so many ways we can go about this, including the skin, the 3D model, color the skin, and then wrap it back up on the model. Okay, so I want something that's military green. Yeah, let's go for something that's military green. Yeah, so I'm just gonna select a suitable color. And I want the tolerance set to 0 so it doesn't bleed like that. But also, turn off aliased rendering. So there we go. Now I want I want a light. No, this is gonna be dark. There we go. Now I want another color that's lighter than that. There we go. Maybe we can further adjust it here. So a suitable military green for our primary and secondary color here. And then we can just figure out suitable colors for the base. Let's go with a. Let's go for a cool gray. So I'll select the cyan color, but turn down the saturation a lot, so it's more gray. There we go. We can then select, press enter to commit those changes. I'm going to select another color and put it there. Yeah, we want something that looks gray and dull. Yep, maybe we can have 4 different shades of this dull gray. So maybe we want one that's really dark. Go for one that's... Okay, press enter to commit our changes. Go for a color that's really light. There we go. Like really light. Commit those changes. It's supposed to be a cool gray, so maybe... There we go. And anything in between, and there we go. Now it looks more, yeah. Okay, so now we have a suitable turret texture. I'm gonna save that, and in our turret here, what I'm going to do is I'll open an image, and the turret texture is saved on my desktop. Select that. And now we have the turret texture overlaid here. Alright, let's figure out which faces go on which color. So, again, this is just how I would go about coloring a 3D model, because I have a particular art style that I like to go for. You might have a different art style in mind, and if you do, I would encourage you to look into other resources. If you're new to Blender, then this might just be a good primer that makes something basic without spending a lot of time or energy worrying about the fine details. And maybe that's why I like the low poly art style so much. It's just It's basic, but it gets the job done. Alright, so let's color in this turret. I'm gonna press Z and select material preview, and right now it doesn't show anything right now. That's because we need to add a material. So new material. So we have a material. Let's assign it base color. Select that, and you want to select image texture. Open. Yeah, click open here, and select the turret texture. So right now our turret is colored, but it's not quite colored. It's not colored correctly. So let's fix that up. I'm going to press 3 so we can select individual faces. Okay. We have it unwrapped already, so here it is unwrapped. Let's do this. Let's ignore virtual gun safety and look down in the barrel here. I'm gonna select these faces here, and yeah, I select these faces and they show up on this side. I'm going to press S to scale it down and then move them using the move tool into this black square here. So now they are colored black. I'm gonna select these faces, and I don't need to scale them down because they're already shrunken enough that they can fit into one of these squares. Let's move it here. Let's select these faces. Dip, dip, dip. S to scale, and let's move these towards this one. Or maybe want to reverse the coloring. Yeah, maybe that's fine. Okay, so let's select these squares. Well, they're not really squares, they're trapezoids. Let's scale it down and move it. Let's move it into this green area. Select these faces and that one in the back. Scale it down. Move it up here. Actually, let's move it here, and then let's select these and select these vertices, move them on this side. These faces can be shrunken down, move on this side. Now let's color in the base. So I'll just select these ones here, move them into here. Okay, so let's move it into one of these colors. Select these faces down here, shrink, and move. Select these faces down here, shrink, and let's move it into this dark color here. And finally, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Select these faces and move them to this dark gray. Alright, we got a turret. Nice. Okay. Maybe I don't like the particular choice of color, so I'm going to move these ones over here and then make this one the same color as the rest of this cylinder here. But maybe we don't. Maybe instead I can select. Maybe you can instead select these faces There we go. That's a turret. Okay, so there are going to be some faces that we'll never see, so you can color them if you want to, or if you want to, you can just write in an Easter egg. That is also a valid choice. But there we go. We have a turret that we can import into our game now. I'm going to save this model. I'm going to... We can import the model... We can import the .blend file directly, but let's go for importing it as an FBX file. Export FBX. So turret.fbx export. So this has information on how to map faces onto a 2D texture already. So when we import this 3D model into Unity, let's open up our project. So it was this one. That was the project that had information on. This is the project that had. It's not that it had information on anything. It's just that that was the project I was using for Chapter 7. So it has already a user interface all set up. So let's give it some time to open and. This may take some time. Oh, it's going. Okay. So there's already a scene in here. Let's double click these inner walls so we can get a close-up view of our scene here. Okay. We have a model for our car already, but I am going to import our brand new model. It is a FBX file. So turret.fbx, which we just made just earlier, drag and drop into there. And then I can drag and drop it into our scene. Right now, it doesn't have its texture. Let's fix that. So, we have a texture for it already down here. So this is already saved on the desktop. Let's import this turret texture over here. Okay, so now it just made. Okay, so looks like it made the. Okay, so looks like it was looking for its material information, but if we wanted to slap a different material on it, we can. See? So let's just go with the root of. Oh, now it's car colored. Okay, so let's go with the root of making a material once more. If we want to use a texture on a 3D model, we need to make it into a material. The quickest way to do that is to literally drag and drop the texture onto our 3D model. That makes a material. And from there we can call it done. But if you want to go the long way, or want details on the long way, you make a brand new material, and in the albedo field you assign the texture, and then you assign the material onto your 3D model. And there we go. Nice. We have a turret that currently does nothing in our scene, but with just the right code, and maybe we need to scale this down just in case. So the scale tool is this here, so we can, well, we don't have to, well, we could scale it that way, but another way is to type values into the scale in the transform, and this, so on this chain link, make sure there isn't a slash going through it, so disable constraint proportion, so when I scale down 1, all the others get scaled. So maybe I can shrink down the turret so it's a more suitable size, so say 50. And remember when we had this cube with the spin and fireball scripts? So in the bonus video, I talked about decoupling behavior so that we can have fireball shooting and enemy movement decoupled from one another, so we can have things that shoot but don't move. And a turret is something that can shoot and not move. So what I can do is copy component and paste component as new in the cube. I'm gonna do that again. Copy component, and on the turret, paste component as new, and it copied all the information from the cube here. So now, if I play the game, what should happen is we actually got it wrong, and that's because the axes are different. The axes are different, so it's spinning along the wrong axis right now. So, oops! It's an easy fix though. So, what I'll do is I'll just make an empty game object, and I'll position it at the center. I'll take this turret here. I'll move it to the center. I'll take the turret and make it a child of our empty game object. So I'll call it turret main. So it really should be turret main that has the spin script. Actually, no, I think it needs to have both scripts because it would try to shoot in the wrong direction if we tried. So what I'll do is I'll take copy component from the turret and paste it onto the parent game object. So paste component as new, and we've copied our fireball shooter. We'll do the same for the spin script. So copy component and paste component as new on the parent. There we go. On the turret, I'll just disable these two scripts. So hopefully now, if I drag the parent game object over here on the side, it should start shooting at the player. Okay, so it's not quite there. So the problem is this: because our code is set up so that it fires in the direction of transform.forward, and basically I need to make some adjustments. So I need to lift this main turret parent game object a little bit up. So let's put it at a position of Y1. And the turret has a position of Y-1. So those two should cancel out so that we have the turret firing straight and in the air. There is also the issue of it pointing in the wrong direction, but let's see it. Let's see our turret work. Okay, so one more fix, and that is to rotate our turret 90 degrees. So I'm rotating it. I actually need to rotate the original here, so I'm rotating it about the Y-axis, so 90 degrees. There we go. So the main reason I had to put the turret model into an empty game object is because of its mismatched it's because the axes on it are mismatched. I tried to rotate it about the z-axis, but the z-axis was sideways. So, but hopefully now, with those fixes in place, we can see the turret actually function properly. And there we go! We got a functioning turret! What it doesn't have right now is the ability to die. So, I can shoot it all I want, but nothing happens. But I can shoot the fireballs in midair. So that's one. Okay. So that was the process of setting up this turret. We imported the turret into the scene, but we had to make it a child object because of its mismatched axes. Instead of attaching the fireball, shooter, and spin scripts onto it, we attached it to the parent. We had to move the parent up and the child down so that their movements cancel out, so that the parent can fire forward and a little bit up in the air. Okay? All right. So those were the changes we had to do. If we were to do this with actually no. Okay, so that should be it on our turret. So what it doesn't lack right so what it doesn't have right now is the ability to get hit by the player. So we can't really disable it right now. So maybe it'll have to be for a different time. So programming this thing to break down when it's hit. I think we would have to make this into a... I think we have to make... Okay, so maybe we have to consider what to do with this turret another day. So it's functionally working, but it would be a good idea to get it to die when it's hit by the player. So yeah, maybe that would have to be a discussion for another time. But there we go. Process of making a turret in Blender and importing the entire model in Unity. There we go. Very nice, huh? Alright, so that's going to be it for this bonus video. If you have any questions, let me know. And we're going to continue our discussion next week. So it's not so much a discussion, but rather a check-in on how you're doing with your midterm project. Okay? Alright. Have a good one, and I'll see you next week.